Because of conference realignment, you can now no longer play your way into the college football playoff. And that is why 12 teams is needed. It is needed because you know what? When you have these loaded conferences, when you have schools that are barely going to play each other in their conference, you still need a way to give them an opportunity to make the college football playoff and compete for a national title. Because right now these conferences are so big, they could easily get screwed on a tiebreaker and have their season end prematurely before it should. With these conferences consolidating, we now need, I think, expansion more than ever. Look at the two mega conferences that are developing right now in front of our eyes. The Big Ten has 18 schools starting in 2024. The SEC will have 16 schools. The Big Ten is going to play 9 conference games for an 18-team conference. The SEC is going to play 8 conference games for a 16-team conference. Meaning, on any given year, you are not playing half your conference. So that's what I say, and what I mean when I say you can no longer play your way into the college football playoff. If you are 12-0, if you are 11-1, if you win your conference, most likely you have a very good, if not guaranteed, chance to make the college football playoff. Now, when you have an 18-team league in the Big Ten, when you have USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, Wisconsin, I love the hire with Luke Fickell. They're on the come up. When you have all those teams in the same conference and barely playing each other just because of the sheer volume of the conference, how can you truly feel good about then that the teams that make the Big Ten title game and win the Big Ten championship are truly the best teams in the conference? There is an absolute realistic situation and possibility here. We could see next year in 2024, USC 11-1, Ohio State 11-1, Michigan, let's say 11-1. 3 teams, which right there you say, oh, you go 11-1, you are in a great spot to be in your conference title game and make a chance, or have a chance, I should say, to play your way into the college football playoff. Well, last time I checked, conference championship games only feature 2 teams. You have 3 teams that are 11-1. All of a sudden, someone's going to be the odd man out. Someone's getting screwed because of a tiebreaker, and now all of a sudden, you're 11-1, and in a 4-team college football playoff are left out, are at home, not competing for a championship, despite the fact that you weren't able to play everyone in your conference, and thus missed out on getting maybe a valuable tiebreaker to get into the conference championship game and play your way into making one of the 4 spots. In a 12-team playoff, that is eliminated. That top heaviness where you could have 2-3 teams in the Big Ten, 2 or 3 teams in the SEC, all ranked within the top 10, all legitimately vying for, a national title that could win it if they're in it, but half of them won't have a chance because there's only 4, and more than half will not even be in their conference championship game. I think access is a priority here. And I never get this gatekeeping that happens with the college football playoff where everyone freaks out and says, 4. We only can say 4. We cannot expand. We cannot allow any other team to have the opportunity to compete for a national championship. Cannot happen. College football is the only sport that freaks out about the playoff. The NFL is at 14 teams. They went from 6 to 7. What was that? I think 2020 was the exact year. Don't quote me on that. So 3 years ago. Is anyone complaining, by the way? Last time I checked, now that we've had, I think, 3 NFL seasons of 7 teams in each conference making the playoffs. Last time I checked, I didn't see anyone bitching about that. No one that's an NFL fan has complained the NFL playoffs are too big. Too many teams make it. Why are we doing that in college football? Makes no sense. But we need it now more than ever with these conferences consolidating, coming together, forming, unfortunately, which I don't think is good for the sport, 2 super conferences. When you have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, Oregon, UCLA, Wisconsin, all in the same conference, and because you're only playing half the conference, unable to play each other to determine who is the best, who is going to go to the conference title game, When you have the SEC with Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas, amongst other schools as well, and they can't play everybody because they're also getting rid of divisions, and again, you're only playing half the teams in your conference, you can't play everybody. So now, we're looking at tiebreakers and win percentage. You could be left out and get the short end of the stick here of not making your conference title game and not making the college world playoff because of technicalities or pure numbers or even worse, tiebreakers. Nobody wants that. Let the deserving teams in and give them a chance. That's all we're talking about here. Giving teams a chance. That's why I think the number has to stay at 12. Without a doubt, 12 is the perfect number now that we are consolidating and having a lot of these big-time title contending teams grouped and reduced to basically 2 conferences for the most part. But another reason why 12 is important, it still does promote parity. Parity in pushing recruits across the country, also parity in not allowing the Big Ten and the SEC to completely and utterly dominate college football. If we stick to 4 teams, what are the chances on a given year that teams not in the Big Ten or SEC make it? I think very little. Very little. You can bare minimum pencil in 3 teams between the Big Ten and SEC combined to take up 4 spots of the college world playoff if it stays at 12. And look at the teams again we're talking about. The teams I just listed before, Georgia, Bama, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma in the SEC. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, Washington in the Big Ten. Those are all obviously going to be there next year, right? And I know we're still a year away, but you look at this year's coaches poll, the early coaches poll that was released. The top 7 teams in the country, voted on by the coaches, next year will all either be in the Big Ten or the SEC. So when it comes to parity, I don't think it's good for the sport if only teams in the Big Ten and SEC make the college world playoff 9 out of 10 years. Sure, there's an odd year or two. Maybe Clemson sneaks in once or twice a year, or Florida State, or you get another surprise TCU. But 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 years, you're getting 4 teams combined from the Big Ten and SEC. That is bad. That is bad for the sport. 12 teams helps to, again, spread out the talent and still bring some parity where the ACC can each and every year believe, okay, we're getting the playoff. Big 12, hey, we're getting the playoff, and maybe we can get multiple teams in the playoff. That is good for college football. Giving teams belief, having teams going into it any given year, believing they can make the playoff. Let's start there. Make the playoff is good for college football, is good for the interest of the sport. Going into a year where we can predetermine the 3 teams that are guaranteed to make the playoff and those 3 that are probably going to be the 3 that are, one of the 3 is going to win the national title, that is not good for college football. Predictability is awful. Awful. And so the less predictability, I think the more buzz and more excitement you can have for an upcoming season. 12 teams helps maintain parity, but also, too, when you have so many big-time, highly successful programs in one of 2 conferences, expanding the playoff also allows those just teams that deserve to have a chance to compete for a championship and make sure they don't get screwed by a tiebreaker in their own conference and kind of get left out. 12 teams is necessary. You want to talk about the format? You want to say the Pac-12, they don't get, obviously, an automatic qualifier into the college world playoff like it's been agreed upon before? No problem. Go back to the drawing board and rework the format. But what should not be revamped, what should not be discussed, is minimizing the number of teams that get into the college world playoff. 12 is perfect, and 12, with all this conference realignment, is needed more than ever.